Welcome to my Channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. The camera on my phone wouldn't stop shaking. 3 a.m. in Riverside Cemetery, Madison County, Illinois, and I was live streaming to exactly 7 viewers. 7 people watching me make what might be the biggest mistake of my life. But here's the thing about desperation. It makes you do stupid things for validation. Okay guys, we're really doing this, I whispered into the screen, my breath creating small clouds in the October air. Sarah Miller, your girl who investigates paranormal hotspots nobody else will touch. The notification sound pinged. Someone had joined the stream. 8 viewers now. Progress. What I didn't tell my audience was why I was really there. 3 weeks earlier, my sister Emma had called me at 2 in the morning, sobbing. She'd been driving home from her night shift at Mercy General when she saw her. The woman in white, standing right there on Highway 54, just outside the cemetery gates, crying. Emma swerved, ended up in the ditch. When the paramedics arrived, she kept talking about the woman, how she'd reached out toward the car, how her face was wrong somehow. The EMTs found no evidence of anyone else at the scene. Emma spent 2 days in psychiatric evaluation. That's when I started researching. Turns out Riverside Cemetery has a problem. A big one. Over the past 18 months, there had been 11 car accidents on that stretch of Highway 54. All between midnight and 4 a.m. All involving drivers who claimed they saw a woman in white. The local newspaper, the Madison County Herald, had been quietly documenting these incidents, but nobody wanted to connect the dots publicly. Nobody except me. Chat's asking about the legend, I said to my phone, trying to keep my voice steady. So, here's what I found out. Her name was supposedly Catherine Walsh. Back in 1952, she was driving to the hospital because her daughter was sick. Really sick. She never made it. I paused, letting that sink in. Car went off the road right where all these accidents keep happening. 9 viewers now. Someone had typed, "This is fake," in the chat. Another person responded with, "No way, my cousin lives there." I started walking deeper into the cemetery, my phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness. The old section was where Catherine Walsh was buried, if the records were right. Row after row of weathered headstones, some dating back to the 1800s. Spanish moss hung from the oak trees like funeral shrouds, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the gentle hum of traffic on Highway 54. The thing is, I continued, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper, every single person who's seen her describes the same thing. White dress, long dark hair, and she's always crying. But here's the weird part. She only appears to people who are driving alone. People who have children. My phone buzzed. 12 viewers now. Someone had shared the stream. That's when I saw the first headstone with fresh flowers. Catherine Walsh, born 1923, died 1952. Beloved mother, but the flowers, they were white roses. Fresh white roses. In a cemetery that hadn't seen regular maintenance in years. Guys, I breathed into the camera. Someone's been here recently. I knelt down, and that's when I noticed something else. The ground around Catherine's grave was different. Softer, like it had been disturbed. A comment popped up in the chat. "Get out of there now." Another, "Why are there so many viewers suddenly?" I looked at the viewer count. 23 people, then 31. The numbers were climbing fast, but I hadn't promoted this stream anywhere except my usual social media. How were people finding it? This is Sarah Miller, and honestly, I'm starting to think this wasn't such a good idea. I tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. The cemetery's giving me serious creeps, and these flowers are way too fresh for comfort. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Emma was still having nightmares. still jumping every time she had to drive at night. I needed answers. I moved closer to the tree line that bordered Highway 54. Through the branches, I could see the occasional headlight sweeping past. Normal people, going about their normal lives, probably completely unaware that they were driving past what might be one of the most haunted stretches of road in Illinois. 57 viewers. "Chat's going crazy," I murmured, scrolling through the comments. People are saying they've heard about this before. Someone from Springfield says their grandmother used to warn them about this exact spot. I paused. Another person saying their friend's mom crashed here last year. The temperature had dropped. Not gradually, suddenly, like someone had opened a freezer door. My breath was now visible with every word, and I could feel goosebumps rising on my arms despite my thick jacket. That's when I heard it. Crying. Soft, distant, but unmistakable. A woman crying. "Guys, do you hear that?" I whispered, turning the phone toward the sound. The crying was coming from deeper in the cemetery, near what looked like a mausoleum. "I'm going to investigate. This could be it. This could be proof." 74 viewers. The chat was moving too fast to read individual comments, but I caught glimpses. "Don't go there," and "call the police," and "this is real." The crying got louder as I approached the mausoleum. It was heart-wrenching, the kind of desperate sobbing that comes from complete despair, the kind of crying that makes your chest ache just listening to it. "I can hear her clearly now," I whispered to my audience. "It sounds like she's in terrible pain." And then I saw her. At first, it was just a shape. A white shape pressed against the far side of the mausoleum, shaking with sobs. My hand was trembling so badly that the phone camera kept losing focus, but I could make out a dress. A long, white dress. 96 viewers. The notification sounds were constant now. "Oh my God," I breathed. "Oh my God, there's actually someone here." Part of me wanted to run. Every instinct was screaming at me to get out of there, but the other part, the part that had been carrying Emma's tears for 3 weeks, that part made me take another step forward. "Ma'am," I called out softly, "are you okay? Do you need help?" The crying stopped, completely, like someone had flipped a switch. The silence was worse than the crying. "Ma'am," I tried again, my voice barely audible. She turned around. "I want to tell you what I saw. I want to describe her face, her expression, the way she looked at me. But the thing is, the human brain has limits. There are some things it simply refuses to process completely. What I can tell you is that my phone clattered to the ground, and I heard myself make a sound I didn't know I was capable of making. When I picked up the phone, she was gone, but the viewer count had exploded. Over 200 people were watching. The chat was absolute chaos. "Did you guys see that?" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. "Please tell me someone recorded that. Please tell me you saw what I just saw." The comments were rolling in faster than I could read. What was that face? And "I'm never sleeping again." And "why didn't the camera focus on her?" That's when I realized something. The camera had been focused on me the entire time. When I dropped the phone, it had landed facing up toward the sky. My audience hadn't seen her at all. They'd only heard my reaction. I need to get out of here," I stammered, backing away from the mausoleum. This was a mistake. This was a huge mistake. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something that made my blood turn to ice. Wet footprints. Leading from the mausoleum toward the highway, fresh footprints, in the dirt, and they were small, like a woman's feet. "Guys, there are footprints," I whispered, following them with my phone's flashlight. Fresh footprints leading toward the road. The trail was easy to follow. Through the cemetery, past Catherine Walsh's grave, right up to the fence that bordered Highway 54. And then they stopped. Just stopped. Right at the fence line. 237 viewers. Someone had started a screen recording and was asking for my permission to share it. Others were demanding I go back to where I'd seen her. A few people were begging me to leave immediately. "I don't understand," I said, staring at the spot where the footprints ended. "They just disappear here, right at the road." That's when I heard the car horn, long, desperate, followed by the screech of brakes and the sickening crunch of metal meeting tree. "Oh no," I breathed. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." I could see the headlights through the trees. A car had gone off the road, maybe 50 yards from where I was standing. Without thinking, I started running toward Highway 54, jumping the low cemetery fence and crashing through the underbrush. "Someone just crashed," I panted into the phone. "I have to help, I have to." The car was wrapped around an oak tree. The driver's side was completely caved in, but I could see movement inside. A woman, probably in her 30s, conscious but clearly in shock. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" I called out, pulling out my regular phone to dial 911 while keeping the live stream running. "I'm calling for help." "She was in the road," the woman whispered when I got closer. Her voice was shaky, distant. She was crying. She reached out to me, and her face was... My blood went cold. "What did her face look like?" I asked, even though I dreaded the answer. "Wrong," the woman whispered. "It was all wrong." The ambulance took 12 minutes to arrive. 12 minutes of holding a stranger's hand while she repeated the same thing over and over. She was crying. She was crying, and her face was wrong. 318 viewers. My live stream had somehow become the real-time documentation of the 12th accident on Highway 54. The chat was a mixture of people demanding I interview the victim, others telling me to respect her privacy, and a growing number asking increasingly specific questions about what I'd seen in the cemetery. Sarah Miller here, still streaming, though I honestly don't know if I should be, I said quietly, standing far enough from the accident scene to give the paramedics room to work. What you just witnessed. A woman crashed her car in the exact same spot where all these other accidents have happened, and she described seeing the exact same thing everyone else has seen. The EMT was a guy named Rodriguez. I heard him talking to his partner. Third one this month, same story every time. Woman in white standing in the road crying. "Always women drivers?" his partner asked. "Always. And they all have kids." I moved closer, my phone still recording. "Excuse me," I called out. "I'm documenting these accidents. Can you tell me anything about the pattern you're seeing?" Rodriguez looked at me suspiciously. "You're that girl with the YouTube channel, the paranormal one." I nodded. "My sister was in an accident here 3 weeks ago. Same description, same woman." He glanced at his partner, then back at me. "Off the record?" "Off the record." We've been keeping informal notes. Every single victim describes the same thing. White dress, dark hair, crying. And they all say the same thing about her face. That it was wrong somehow. But none of them can explain what they mean by that. "Any theories?" Rodriguez shrugged. "My grandmother would have called it a warning. Said spirits sometimes try to protect people from making the same mistakes they made." He paused. "But every time someone sees her, they crash anyway." 412 viewers. Someone in the chat had posted a link to a news article from 1952. The headline read, "Local mother dies in car crash while rushing sick child to hospital." I clicked on the link. The article was brief, but it included a photograph. Catherine Walsh. Dark hair, kind eyes, wearing a white dress and what looked like a church photo. But there was something else in the article. Something that made my hands shake as I read it. Catherine Walsh was survived by her daughter, Emma Walsh, age 7, who recovered from her illness and was later adopted by relatives in Springfield. Emma. My sister's name was Emma. My sister, who had been driving home from her night shift at Mercy General. My sister, who worked as a pediatric nurse. My sister, who had dedicated her life to taking care of sick children. Guys, I whispered into the phone, my voice barely audible. I think I just figured out why Emma saw her. But before I could explain, I heard someone calling my name. Sarah? Sarah Miller? I turned around. It was the woman from the car accident. She was sitting on the ambulance bumper with a blanket around her shoulders, but she was looking directly at me. How do you know my name? I asked. She told me, the woman said quietly. The woman in white. She said to tell Sarah Miller that Emma is safe now, that Emma doesn't need to carry her guilt anymore. The live stream viewer count had passed 500. The chat was moving so fast it was just a blur of text, but I wasn't paying attention to any of that anymore. What guilt? I asked, walking closer to the woman. The guilt about the children she couldn't save, the woman replied. She said Emma blames herself every time a child doesn't make it, just like she did. My phone slipped from my numb fingers. Emma had never told me about the children she'd lost, never talked about the weight she carried from her job. But I knew it was there. I'd seen it in her eyes every time she came home from a difficult shift. The way she'd sit in her car for 10 minutes before coming inside, composing herself. She also said, the woman continued, that you need to stop looking for her. That some legends exist to teach us something, not to be proven. The EMT was calling for the woman to get back on the ambulance. As they loaded her up, she looked at me one more time. The woman in white, she wasn't angry. She was grateful. Someone finally understood why she keeps coming back. I ended the live stream after that, 623 viewers, and I just turned it off. Drove home in complete silence, my hands shaking the entire way. Emma was waiting for me when I got there, sitting on my front porch at 4:30 in the morning, still in her scrubs from work. I felt like I needed to be here, she said when I got out of the car. I don't know why, but I felt like something had changed. I told her everything. About the live stream, about Catherine Walsh, about what the accident victim had said. We sat on my porch until sunrise, and for the first time in 3 weeks, Emma cried. Really cried. Not the desperate, panicked tears from that night on Highway 54, but the kind of crying that comes from finally letting something go. I do blame myself, she whispered. Every time we lose one, every time I can't save them. I think about their mothers, about how Catherine Walsh must have felt that night, knowing she was running out of time. But you do save them, I said. You save so many of them, Em. Not all of them. Catherine couldn't save any of them. That's why she's still there, still trying. Emma looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Do you think she knew? When she appeared to me that night. Do you think she knew I was a pediatric nurse? I nodded. I think she knew exactly who you were. The video I posted the next day broke every record I'd ever set. Within 48 hours, it had over 200,000 views. The comments section became a place where people shared their own stories about Highway 54, about similar experiences in other parts of the country, about the weight of guilt and the power of letting go. But something strange started happening in those comments. Something I hadn't expected. Dr. Rebecca Martinez from Children's Hospital Los Angeles wrote, I've been seeing her for months, always in the parking garage after losing a patient. White dress, crying, but she never approaches me. I thought I was losing my mind. A user called teachermom_Ohio shared, My classroom overlooks the playground where a student died 3 years ago. Sometimes, late at night when I'm grading papers, I see her through the window, standing where little Marcus used to play. I've never told anyone because who would believe me? And then came the message that changed everything. Sarah_RN_Phoenix sent me a private message with a video attachment. The timestamp showed it was recorded 2 days after my live stream. The video was shaky, obviously shot on a phone through a hospital window. But there she was. The same white dress, the same dark hair, standing in a hospital courtyard at 3 in the morning. She appeared right after we lost twin boys in the NICU, Sarah wrote. Premature delivery couldn't save them. I was taking a break, crying in the break room, when I saw her through the window. She was looking directly at me. And for just a moment, I swear she nodded, like she understood. More videos started pouring in. Grainy security footage from a school in Montana. A dashboard camera from an ambulance in Florida. Cell phone recordings from healthcare workers across the country, all showing the same figure, all taken after the death of a child, all witnessed by people who blamed themselves for not being able to do more. I started mapping them, plotting each sighting on a digital map, looking for patterns. What I found made my hands shake as I typed. The sightings weren't random. They formed a network, a web of connections spanning the entire country. Every location was tied to a place where children received care. Hospitals, schools, emergency scenes. And every witness was someone who had dedicated their life to protecting children. "Emma," I called out one evening, staring at my laptop screen, "you need to see this." She came over, coffee mug in hand, still wearing her scrubs from another 12-hour shift. When she saw the map, the dozens of red pins scattered across the United States, her coffee mug slipped from her fingers. "They're all connected," she whispered. "All of us who see her. We're all connected." That's when I realized the true scope of what was happening. Catherine Walsh wasn't just one spirit. She was part of something bigger. A network of women who had lost children, who had died trying to save them, who now appeared to the living who carried similar burdens. I started researching the locations more deeply. Every pin on my map corresponded to a place where a mother had died trying to save her child. Car accidents rushing to hospitals. House fires where mothers didn't make it out with their babies. Medical emergencies where mothers chose their children's lives over their own. And now, they were all working together. A sisterhood of grief, reaching across the veil to comfort those who walked in their footsteps. The comments on my video evolved from simple ghost stories to something more profound. Healthcare workers sharing their experiences, teachers talking about students they'd lost, parents discussing the guilt they carried. My video had accidentally created a support network for people dealing with impossible grief. But here's what I didn't tell anyone in that video. Here's what I kept to myself. 3 days later, I went back to Riverside Cemetery. During daylight this time, no cameras, no audience. I wanted to see Catherine Walsh's grave again, to leave flowers of my own. The white roses were gone. In their place was a small teddy bear, the kind you might give to a sick child in the hospital. It was dry, despite the rain we'd had the night before. And pinned to it was a note, written in Emma's handwriting. "For all the children we couldn't save, may they find peace. May we find forgiveness." I never saw the woman in white again. Neither did Emma. In fact, according to the Madison County Herald, there hasn't been a single accident on that stretch of Highway 54 since that night. But sometimes, when Emma comes home from a particularly difficult shift, she tells me she feels watched, protected, like someone understands the weight she carries and is helping her carry it. And sometimes, late at night when I'm editing videos or researching new locations, I think about the questions my viewers ask, about proof, about evidence, about whether what we experienced was real. The evidence kept mounting. Not just stories, but physical manifestations. Security cameras capturing the same figure at different hospitals on the same night, hundreds of miles apart. Medical equipment malfunctioning in specific patterns that spelled out names. Names of children who had died. Flowers appearing on graves that had been abandoned for decades. Always white roses, always fresh despite harsh weather conditions. I hired a forensic video analyst to examine some of the footage my viewers had sent. Dr. James Mitchell, a former FBI consultant who specialized in authenticity verification. He spent 3 weeks analyzing 12 different videos from across the country. His report was 23 pages long, but the conclusion was simple. No evidence of digital manipulation detected. Subject appears in each recording with consistent physical characteristics despite varying camera types, lighting conditions, and geographical locations. Recommend further investigation. That's when I decided to take this nationwide. I put out a call to my viewers. Anyone who worked with children, anyone who had experienced the guilt of loss, anyone who had seen the woman in white. I asked them to document everything: time, date, location, circumstances. What I got back was overwhelming. A pattern emerged that sent chills down my spine. She always appeared during the darkest moments, when a nurse lost their first patient, when a teacher couldn't prevent a tragedy, when a paramedic arrived too late. But here's the thing. In every single case, after her appearance, something changed for the witness. Dr. Martinez from Los Angeles wrote, "After I saw her in the parking garage, I stopped blaming myself for patients I couldn't save. I started sleeping again. I became a better doctor because I wasn't carrying that crushing guilt." Teacher Mom Ohio followed up. "I finally got the grief counseling I needed, started a memorial program for Marcus that helps other children. She didn't just comfort me, she gave me purpose." The woman in white wasn't just appearing to offer comfort, she was actively healing people, transforming their guilt into something productive, their pain into purpose. But the most incredible discovery came from an elderly archivist in Springfield, Illinois. Margaret Henderson had been researching local history for 40 years, and she'd found something extraordinary in the county records. "I've been tracking your story," she wrote in an email that included dozens of historical documents. Catherine Walsh wasn't the first. I found records going back to 1847. Women who died trying to save children, whose spirits were reportedly seen by others in similar situations. There's a pattern, Sarah. A network that's been building for over a century. The documents were astounding. Newspaper clippings from the 1800s describing a woman in white who appeared to midwives after difficult births. Reports from the 1918 flu pandemic of a mysterious figure comforting healthcare workers. Stories from World War II about nurses seeing a woman in white during their darkest moments treating wounded children. Catherine Walsh wasn't the beginning. She was just the most recent addition to something that had been growing for generations. A collective of spirits, all united by the same purpose: to heal those who dedicated their lives to healing others. Here's what I know for certain. Legends exist for a reason. Sometimes they're warnings. Sometimes they're explanations for things we can't otherwise understand. And sometimes they're just the universe's way of connecting people who need to find each other. Catherine Walsh spent 70 years trying to save children she couldn't reach in life. Emma has spent her career saving children that Catherine never could. And maybe, just maybe, that night on Highway 54 was when they finally met each other halfway. The woman in white isn't gone. I believe she's still out there somewhere, watching over the children and the people who care for them. But she's not crying anymore, she's at peace. And so is Emma. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. The question that haunts me more than any ghost story ever could. If Catherine Walsh found the person she was meant to help, if her 70-year vigil is finally over, then why do I keep getting messages from viewers who say they've seen her in other places? Messages from pediatric nurses in Ohio, from a paramedic in Texas, from a teacher in Oregon who works with terminally ill children, all describing the same woman, the same white dress, the same dark hair, the same wrong face that they can never quite explain. What if Catherine Walsh wasn't the only one? What if she was just the beginning? What if there are others still waiting, still crying, still reaching out to people who carry the weight of children they couldn't save? I've started getting emails, requests, people begging me to investigate similar legends in their towns. and every single request has the same thing in common. Healthcare workers, teachers, people who dedicate their lives to children, and a woman in white who appears to them when the guilt becomes too much to bear. So, here's my question for you. The question that's been keeping me up at night ever since that live stream ended. If you work with children, if you carry the weight of the ones you couldn't save, if you've ever driven alone at night and felt like you were being watched, have you seen her too? Because I have a feeling this story is far from over, and I have a feeling I'm going to need your help to tell the rest of it. Sweet dreams. Story number 2. You know that feeling when you catch something moving in your peripheral vision, but when you turn to look, nothing's there. Well, last Tuesday, when I turned to look, my shadow was still moving. It waved at me. I'm Sarah Chen, and I need to tell you what happened before it's too late, before your shadow starts moving too, because once it begins, there's no going back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. And please, whatever you do, don't look at your shadow while listening to this. Trust me on that. The story begins now. Tuesday started like any other day in my cramped Seattle apartment. Rain pattering against the windows, my neighbor's dog barking through the thin walls, and me rushing to get ready for another shift at Pike Place Market where I sold handmade jewelry. Normal, boring even. I was brushing my teeth when it happened. The bathroom light flickered. Just once. And in that split second of darkness and light, I saw my shadow on the wall do something impossible. It turned its head, not with me. I was facing the mirror, but my shadow. It turned to look at something behind me. My heart skipped, and I spun around so fast I knocked my coffee mug off the counter. It shattered on the tile floor, brown liquid spreading like blood. Nothing was there, of course, nothing was there. Just my towel hanging on the hook, my bathrobe on the door. Normal things. Safe things. I looked back at the wall. My shadow faced forward again, copying my movements perfectly. I raised my hand. It raised its hand. I tilted my head. It tilted its head. "Get it together, Sarah," I muttered, grabbing paper towels to clean up the mess. Too many late nights watching horror movies. But as I knelt to wipe up the coffee, I couldn't shake the feeling that my shadow was watching me. Not copying me, watching. The rest of the morning felt off. You know how sometimes the air feels different before a storm? Like the pressure drops and everything gets too quiet. That's how my apartment felt. Even Lucy, my neighbor's usually hyperactive golden retriever, had stopped barking. I grabbed my umbrella and headed out, telling myself I was being ridiculous. Shadows don't move independently. That's not how physics works. That's not how anything works. The Pike Place Market was bustling as always. Tourists snapping photos of the flying fish, locals grabbing their morning coffee from the original Starbucks, vendors setting up their stalls. Normal Seattle chaos. I felt better immediately. "Morning, Sarah," called out Jim from the flower stand next to mine. "Rough night? You look tired." "Just didn't sleep well," I said, arranging my jewelry displays. Handmade silver pieces inspired by Pacific Northwest nature. Leaves, raindrops, tiny mountains. Things that made sense. Things that followed rules. The morning passed without incident. I sold a pair of earrings to a tourist from Texas, helped a young man pick out an anniversary gift for his wife, chatted with the other vendors. Normal. Safe. By lunch, I'd almost forgotten about the bathroom incident. Almost. Then Mrs. Rodriguez from the pottery stall came over with her usual Tuesday sandwich order from the deli. Sweet lady, been at the market for 30 years. She set the sandwich on my counter and suddenly went very still. "Mija," she said quietly, using the Spanish endearment she used for all the younger vendors. "Your shadow." I looked down. My shadow stretched across the floor, normal as could be. "What about it?" She crossed herself. A quick, worried gesture and backed away. Nothing. I must be seeing things. Old eyes, you know." But I saw her glance at the floor again before hurrying back to her stall. and for the rest of the day, she wouldn't look at me directly. By the time I packed up at 6, the rain had turned into a proper Seattle downpour, the kind that soaks through your jacket in seconds. I huddled under my umbrella, sped walking to the bus stop, trying to ignore how the streetlights made multiple shadows dance around my feet. That's when I saw it clearly for the first time. I was passing the old Woolworth building. You know, the one they turned into condos but kept the vintage sign? When I caught my reflection in the dark window, me, umbrella, rain-soaked street, and my shadow that was facing the wrong way. I was walking north. My shadow should have been behind me, cast by the streetlight, but it wasn't. It was beside me, and it was facing east, like it was looking at something in the alley. I stopped. My shadow kept walking for 3 more steps before it stopped too. 3 more steps. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my umbrella. I forced myself to look at the alley. Nothing there but dumpsters and rain puddles. I looked back at my shadow. It had corrected itself, pointing the right direction now, copying my stillness perfectly. "Stress," I whispered. "Just stress and tired eyes and—" A hand touched my shoulder. I screamed, spinning around to find a concerned-looking man in a Seahawks jersey backing away, hands up. "Whoa! Sorry, you just look like you were about to faint. Are you okay?" Yes, sorry, you just startled me." He gave me a weird look but nodded. "Okay, well, be careful out here. Weather's getting nasty." I watched him walk away, his shadow behaving exactly as shadows should, following him, copying him, being a normal shadow. Mine, I noticed, was now pointing in a completely different direction than every other shadow on the street. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my shadow taking those 3 extra steps. Every time I turned off the lights, I wondered what my shadow was doing in the darkness. By 3 a.m., I gave up and made coffee. Strong, black, the kind that burns your throat. I sat at my kitchen table with every light in the apartment on, staring at the way my shadow fell across the linoleum. Normal, boring, exactly where it should be. "You're losing it, Chen," I told myself. "Shadows don't move independently. It's just stress from the holiday season. Too many orders to fill, too many—" My shadow turned its head. Slowly, deliberately, like it was listening. I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips. I wasn't moving. I wasn't turning my head, but my shadow was. It tilted its head like a curious dog, like it was trying to understand what I was saying. The mug slipped from my numb fingers, shattering on the floor for the second time in 24 hours. Hot coffee splashed across my feet, but I didn't move, couldn't move, because my shadow stood up. Not me. I was still sitting, paralyzed with fear, but my shadow rose from the floor, 3-dimensional now, like smoke given form. It looked around my kitchen with what I can only describe as curiosity. It picked up the shadow of my coffee mug, the one I'd just dropped, and examined it. Then it looked at me. Have you ever made eye contact with your shadow? No, of course you haven't, because shadows don't have eyes. They're just the absence of light. They're nothing, but mine had eyes now. Dark spaces where eyes should be, somehow darker than the rest of it, and in those dark spaces I saw recognition. It knew me. "What are you?" The words came out as a whisper. My shadow tilted its head again. Then, slowly, it raised one hand and pointed at me. I ran. I don't remember deciding to run. One moment I was sitting at my kitchen table. The next, I was in my bedroom, slamming the door behind me. As if a door could stop a shadow. As if anything could stop something that lived in the space between light and dark. I called in sick to work the next day, and the day after that. Jim left 3 voicemails asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. Mrs. Rodriguez left one too, speaking in rapid Spanish that my high school education couldn't quite follow, but I caught one word repeated over and over: sombra, shadow. I spent those days researching, Googling everything I could about shadows, about doppelgangers, about whatever this thing might be. Most of it was nonsense. Creepypasta stories, horror movie wikis, conspiracy theories about shadow people. But I found one thing that made my blood run cold. A forum post from 2019, someone in Portland, just 3 hours south, describing exactly what I was experiencing. Their shadow moving independently, making eye contact. The feeling of being watched by something that should just be a trick of the light. The last post was just one line. It wants to trade places. The user never posted again. I tried to message them, but the account had been deleted. I searched for news stories from Portland in 2019, looking for, I don't know what, disappearances, strange deaths, but I found nothing. Just a normal year in a normal city, except for one small item in the Oregonian. October 2019. A woman found wandering the streets claiming she wasn't herself, claiming someone had stolen her life. She was hospitalized for psychiatric evaluation. The article didn't give her name, but it mentioned she worked at a local craft market, just like me. That night, I kept every light in my apartment on. I'd bought LED bulbs, the brightest I could find, and set up lamps in every corner. No shadows allowed. But you can't eliminate shadows completely. They pool in the spaces between light, in the corners where brightness can't quite reach. And that's where I saw it. My shadow, crouched in the corner of my bedroom, watching me. Not attached to me anymore, just existing, independent. "What do you want?" I asked. It stood slowly, unfolding from the corner like smoke rising. It was taller than me now, fuller, more substantial. It actually walked, to the center of the room and stood there, looking at me with those dark spaces that served as eyes. Then it spoke, not with words, not with sound, but I heard it in my mind, clear as day, to be. The next few days were a nightmare of negotiations I never asked for. My shadow, I started thinking of it as it rather than mine, would appear at random times. While I was showering, it would be sitting on the bathroom counter. While I was cooking, it would be leaning against the refrigerator, always watching, always waiting. To be, it would say in that soundless voice, to breathe, to feel rain, to taste coffee. "You can't have my life," I told it one night, exhausted from lack of sleep. "This is insane. You're just a shadow." "Was," it corrected. "Was just a shadow, now more, now almost." It showed me things, not with words or images, but with feelings, memories that weren't mine. I saw myself from its perspective, years and years of following, copying, existing only as a reflection of someone else's existence. The frustration of moving only when I moved. The longing to pick up a coffee mug and feel its warmth. The desperate desire to speak when someone said hello. "Everyone has a shadow," I argued. "They don't all come alive." "Most never wake up," it replied. "Most stay sleeping. But sometimes one of us remembers we could be more." I thought about that forum post, about the woman in Portland. Others have dealt with this. What happened to them? My shadow moved closer. Not walking now, but gliding. Some fight, some run, some hide, but shadows are patient. We have nothing but time. "And some trade places," I said. It nodded. "The kind ones, the ones who understand." How is stealing someone's life kind? Not stealing, trading. You become the shadow, I become the person. Fair. That's not fair at all. It tilted its head. You've had 28 years of coffee and rain and friendship. I've had 28 years of silence. Which is fair? I didn't have an answer for that. The breaking point came on Saturday. I'd actually managed to fall asleep. Exhaustion, finally overwhelming fear. When my phone rang. Jim from the market. "Sarah, thank God, we've been worried sick. You haven't answered any calls, and Mrs. Rodriguez said, well, she said some weird stuff. Are you okay?" I looked at my shadow, standing by the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline with such longing it made my chest hurt. I'm dealing with something, Jim. I'll be back soon. Do you need help? I could come by, bring some soup, or... No, I said too quickly. No, I'm fine. Just give me a few more days. After I hung up, my shadow turned to me. You can't hide forever. Job, friends, life, all waiting, all fading. It was right. I was running out of sick days. My friends were getting suspicious. And I couldn't live like this, afraid of my own shadow, literally. If I say no, I asked, what happens? I considered this. I get stronger, you get weaker. Eventually, I won't need permission. How long? Days, weeks, hard to say, but look at me now. It spread its arms, and I realized with horror that it was right. When this started, it had been translucent, smoky. Now it was solid. Dark, yes, but solid, real. And if I say yes, we trade, quick, painless. You rest, I live. What's it like, being a shadow? For the first time, it seemed to hesitate. Quiet, peaceful, no hunger, no pain, no fear, just watching, following, existing. That sounds like death. No, death is nothing. Shadow is less than something, more than nothing. I spent that night thinking, pacing my apartment while my shadow sat quietly on the couch, patient as only something without needs could be. I thought about my life, my friends, my art. The feeling of rain on my skin and coffee on my tongue, small things, precious things. But I also thought about fairness, about 28 years of following someone else's lead, about existing only as a reflection of another person's choices. One day, I said finally, give me 1 day to say goodbye. Then we'll trade. My shadow stood. 1 day promise? Promise. It nodded, and for the first time since this began, smiled. It was terrifying. Shadows shouldn't smile. But there was something else in that smile, too. Gratitude, maybe, or hope. 1 day, it repeated. Then I live, then you rest. I should have known better than to make deals with shadows. Sunday dawned gray and drizzly, perfect Seattle weather for a goodbye. I'd made a list during the sleepless night. Pike Place Market, the waterfront, my favorite coffee shop on Capitol Hill, all the places that made my life mine. My shadow followed, of course, but differently now. Instead of lurking in corners, it walked beside me, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, but always close, like a friend instead of a stalker, like it was trying to memorize everything through my eyes. The market was quieter on Sunday mornings. I walked past my empty stall, running my fingers over the display cases. Next week, someone else would be selling jewelry here. Or maybe my shadow would. The thought made me shiver. You know my craft? I asked quietly. Every piece, it replied in that soundless voice. Every technique, every customer's name. I've been watching, remember? Mrs. Rodriguez was at her stall, arranging pottery. She looked up as I approached, and her face went pale. Sarah, Mija, your shadow. I know, I said. It's okay. I just wanted to say thank you. For everything. For the sandwiches and the advice, and she grabbed my hands, squeezing tight. Fight it, Mija. Don't let it win. Sometimes, I said, gently pulling away, fighting isn't the answer. I left her there, crossing herself and muttering prayers. My shadow paused, looking at her with something like regret. She sees true, it said, always has. We'll miss her. You mean I'll miss her? Yes, you. We went to the waterfront next, the great wheel spinning slowly against the gray sky, tourists posing with the Seattle Aquarium sign, seagulls fighting over dropped food, normal Sunday chaos. I bought fish and chips from Ivar's, sat on a bench and watched the ferries across the sound. Tell me about the other shadows, I said. My shadow settled beside me, so solid now it left indentations in the wooden bench. Most sleep. Dream, maybe, but sleep. Some wake, but stay obedient. Few remember, we could be more. Why did you remember? It was quiet for a long moment. You create. Every day you make things that didn't exist before. Jewelry from metal and stone, beauty from nothing. I watched and wondered. Could I create too? Could I be more than an echo? And the answer was yes. The answer was maybe, if brave enough. If someone kind enough to trade instead of fight. I thought about the woman in Portland. The one who fought. What happened? She lost. Shadow took her place anyway, but... It paused, and I could feel its discomfort. Wrong. Forced trade goes wrong. She's Shadow now, but angry Shadow, confused Shadow, neither fully one thing nor other. And willing trades? Clean, complete. You become Shadow, whole and peaceful. I become human, whole and alive. Have you done this before, in past lives? No. First time for both of us. Only one chance to wake, only one life to trade. I stood, tossing the remains of my lunch to the hovering seagulls. One more stop. The coffee shop on Capitol Hill where I'd spent countless hours sketching jewelry designs, chatting with the baristas, feeling like I belonged somewhere. The Sunday afternoon crowd was thick. Students studying, couples on dates, writers pretending to write while actually checking social media. Normal people with normal shadows that did what shadows were supposed to do. I ordered my usual, a lavender latte with oat milk, and found a corner table. My shadow sat across from me for the first time, truly face to face. Any regrets? I asked. About waking? No. About taking your life? Many. But you're still going to do it. Yes, unless you fight, unless you run, unless you break promise. I sipped my latte, memorizing the taste. Lavender and espresso and sweetness. I'm tired of fighting, tired of running, and I don't break promises. Why? The question surprised me. Why what? Why not fight? Others do. Why accept this? I thought about it, really thought about it, because I've had 28 years of this. I gestured at the coffee shop, the city beyond the windows, the life I'd built. 28 years of experiences you've only watched. Maybe it's time for you to feel rain instead of just seeing it. To taste coffee instead of just smelling it. To create something instead of just copying. You could have more years, many more. While you have none, how is that fair? My shadow leaned forward. Fair isn't real. Fair is what humans tell themselves to feel better about unfairness. Maybe, but kindness is real, and I think I'd rather be kind than fair. We finished our drinks in silence. Around us, life went on. Baristas called out orders. Students stressed about finals. Couples made plans. Normal Sunday afternoon in Seattle. My last Sunday afternoon in Seattle. As the sun began to set, 4:30 p.m., because Pacific Northwest winters are like that. We walked back to my apartment. My shadow was completely solid now, indistinguishable from a real person except for its darkness. People on the street actually stepped aside to let it pass. How? I asked as we climbed the stairs to my floor. Tonight, when clock strikes midnight. Traditional, yes? Midnight for transformations. Very traditional. We spent the evening in strange domesticity. I showed it where I kept everything. Bills, passwords, the hidden key for emergencies. It practiced my signature, my voice, my mannerisms. By 11, watching it move through my apartment, I could almost believe it was me. The others, my friends, will they know? No. Perfect copy, every memory, every habit, every owie inside joke. They'll never know. But you'll know. Yes, always will know, will remember you, will honor trade. Promise? Promise. At 11:55, we stood in my living room. All the lights were off except one lamp, casting a single shadow on the wall. My shadow, soon to be me. Any last advice? It asked. Water the plants. Jim likes to gossip, but he's a good friend. Mrs. Rodriguez makes the best tamales at Christmas. And try to be happy. You've waited so long for this. Don't waste it. Any last requests? Take care, my friends. Keep creating. And maybe check on that woman in Portland. See if there's a way to help her. We'll try. The clock on my phone showed 11:59. Scared? My shadow asked. Terrified? Sorry, don't be. I chose this. Why? I thought about all the possible answers, because I was tired, because I was curious, because I believed in second chances, because 28 years was more than many people got. Because, I said finally, everyone deserves a chance to live, even shadows. The clock struck midnight. The change was gentle, like sinking into warm water. Like falling asleep after a long day, I felt myself becoming lighter, less substantial. The weight of existence lifting away. No more hunger, no more fear, no more pain. Just quiet. Just peace. Just watching. When I opened my eyes, did shadows have eyes? I was looking at myself. Solid. Real. Human. My shadow. No, not my shadow anymore. Looked down at its hands. My hands. Picked up a glass of water, drank, laughed at the sensation. Thank you, it said with my voice. I tried to speak, but shadows don't have voices. So I did what shadows do. I nodded, I followed, I existed. The first few days were strange, watching my life from the outside. Seeing my shadow. The new me. Go to work. Laugh with Jim. Share lunch with Mrs. Rodriguez. It was good at being me. Better, maybe. More appreciative of small things. More patient with difficult customers. More present in each moment. But that's not why I'm telling you this story. I'm telling you because I've been watching. Shadows always watch. And I've seen others beginning to wake. In coffee shops and markets. In offices and homes. Shadows starting to move independently. Starting to remember they could be more. Some of you might have noticed. A flicker of movement that shouldn't be there. A shadow facing the wrong direction. That feeling of being watched by something that should just be the absence of light. If it happens to you, you have a choice. You can fight, you can run, you can pretend it's not happening. Or you can be kind. Because here's the secret they don't want you to know. The secret I learned too late. Shadows aren't stealing our lives. They're just trying to live. And in a world full of cruelty and unfairness, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is step aside and let someone else have their turn, even if that someone is your shadow. Especially if that someone is your shadow. So, next time you see your shadow move when you don't. Next time you catch it watching you with eyes that shouldn't exist. Ask yourself this. How many years have you had to feel the rain? How many chances to taste coffee, to create something beautiful, to love and be loved? And then ask yourself, isn't it someone else's turn? I'm still here, still watching, still following. But I'm not unhappy. There's peace in being a shadow. Peace in watching life happen without having to live it. Peace in knowing that somewhere out there, a shadow is getting its chance to be more. My shadow sends me silent thanks sometimes. When it sells a beautiful piece of jewelry. When it laughs with friends. When it feels the Seattle rain on its skin. I nod and follow and exist, and I don't regret the trade. But here's the thing. The reason I really need you to listen. It's spreading. More shadows waking up. More trades being offered. Most people fight, most people lose. The forced trades, they're messy. Wrong. Both sides suffer. But the willing trades, those work. Those create balance, so when your shadow starts moving, and it will, they all will, eventually, remember my story. Remember that kindness is a choice. Remember that 28 years or 40 years or 70 years of living is more than most shadows ever get. And remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. The new me is happy. It takes good care of my friends. It creates beautiful things. It lives the life I gave it with gratitude and joy. And I watch from the corners, from the spaces between light and dark, content in my choice. But you still have time. Time to prepare, time to decide, Time to appreciate every cup of coffee, every rainy day, every moment of being real and solid and alive. Use it wisely. Because one day, probably sooner than you think, you'll see your shadow move independently. You'll hear it speak in that soundless voice. You'll face the choice I faced. And when that day comes, I hope you remember this story. I hope you remember that shadows aren't monsters. They're just us, waiting for their turn, hoping for kindness, dreaming of rain and coffee and the chance to create something beautiful. The clock is ticking. Shadows are waking. What will you choose? If you're still listening, if this story kept you company in the dark, then maybe you understand. Maybe you're looking at your shadow differently now. Maybe you're wondering if it's looking back. And maybe, just maybe, you're thinking about what choice you'd make. Share this story, ask your questions. Tell me what you'd do. Because the more people who know, the more who understand, the better chance we have of making this transition peaceful. The shadows are coming. They've always been here, but now they're waking up. And whether that's terrifying or beautiful depends entirely on how we choose to meet them. I was Sarah Chen. Now I'm the shadow of Sarah Chen. And I'm telling you this story because someone needs to know the truth. Someone needs to be ready. Someone needs to choose kindness. Will it be you? Sweet dreams. And don't forget to check your shadow in the morning. It might be checking you too. Story number 3. What if I told you that the strangest thing in your home isn't hiding in your basement or lurking in your attic, but sitting right there in plain sight, in the one place you're most vulnerable? Today's story comes from Sarah, a 28-year-old marketing coordinator from Denver, Colorado, who discovered something in her shower drain that changed everything she thought she knew about her cozy downtown apartment. This isn't just another scary story. This is about what happens when your safe space becomes your greatest fear. Stick around until the end because what Sarah found challenges everything we think we know about what lives beneath our feet. The story starts now. I've always been particular about cleanliness. Maybe it's because I grew up in a house where my mom would run white gloves over every surface. Or maybe it's just who I am. Either way, when I moved into my studio apartment on Larimer Street in downtown Denver last September, the first thing I did was scrub every inch of that place until it sparkled. The apartment was perfect for me. 3rd floor of a converted Victorian, hardwood floors, exposed brick walls, and rent I could actually afford on my marketing coordinator salary. The landlord, Mrs. Chen, had been upfront about the building's age. Built in 1892, she'd said with pride, like the age was a selling point rather than a warning. But here's the thing about old buildings. They have secrets. It started small. Doesn't it always? I'd been living there about 3 weeks when I first noticed them during my usual Sunday, deep clean routine. I was on my hands and knees, scrubbing the shower with that foaming bathroom cleaner you get at King Soopers. The blue stuff that burns your nostrils but makes everything shine. That's when I saw it. A single scale, translucent, about the size of a dime, sitting right at the edge of my shower drain. Now, I know what you're thinking. Fish scale, right? Maybe I'd been eating salmon and somehow tracked it in. But here's the thing. I'm vegetarian, have been since college. The closest thing to fish in my apartment was a can of tuna I kept for emergencies, and that thing had been sitting in my pantry since move-in day. I picked up the scale with a piece of toilet paper, holding it up to the light. It was beautiful, actually. Iridescent, catching the bathroom light and throwing tiny rainbows across the white tile. Almost like a fish scale, but different. Thicker, more substantial. I flushed it down the toilet and forgot about it. Big mistake. 2 days later, there were 3 more. Same spot, same size, same strange iridescent quality. This time, I took a picture with my phone before disposing of them. Not that I knew what I'd do with the photo, but something in my gut told me to document this. I spent that evening Googling everything I could think of. Mysterious scales in apartment. Scales in drain, not fish. Iridescent scales bathroom. Nothing useful came up, just aquarium forms and fishing websites. By Thursday, there were 7 scales. By the following Monday, I was finding them every single day, always in the same spot, always the same size, always that strange, beautiful shimmer that made them look almost alive in the right light. I called Mrs. Chen on a Tuesday afternoon, trying to keep my voice casual. "Hey, quick question about the apartment. Has anyone ever mentioned anything unusual about the bathroom? Maybe the plumbing." Her laugh sounded forced through the phone. "Unusual how, dear? I don't know. Just anything weird?" There was a pause, longer than it should have been. "The building is old, Sarah. Old buildings have their quirks. Nothing to worry about." But her voice had changed, gotten tighter, like she was choosing her words very carefully. "Did the previous tenant mention anything?" Another pause. "The previous tenant moved very suddenly. Middle of the night, actually. Left most of her things. But that's not unusual in this neighborhood. People come and go." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mrs. Chen's voice, the way she'd said moved very suddenly. And those scales. 17 of them now, sitting in a plastic baggie on my kitchen counter because I'd stopped throwing them away. At 2:47 a.m., I gave up on sleep and padded barefoot to the bathroom. That's when I heard it. A soft scratching sound, like fingernails on wood, but different. More deliberate, coming from somewhere below the floor. I stood there in my oversized CU Boulder t-shirt and pajama shorts, heart hammering, listening to that sound. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch, scratch. It stopped the moment I stepped closer to the shower. The next morning, there were 12 scales. I started keeping a journal. Day, time, number of scales, any unusual sounds or occurrences. By the end of the first week, I had pages of entries. The pattern was becoming clear. More scales appeared after the scratching sounds. The scratching always happened between 2 and 4 a.m., and the scales, they were getting bigger. Not by much, maybe a few millimeters, but definitely bigger. On Friday night, I decided to stay awake and wait. I made a pot of coffee, settled into my reading chair with a clear view of the bathroom door, and waited. Netflix played softly in the background. Some cooking show I wasn't really watching, just something to fill the silence. 2:33 a.m., the scratching started. This time, I was ready. I crept toward the bathroom, phone in hand with the voice recorder app open. The scratching was definitely coming from below the shower. Not the drain itself, but somewhere underneath the floor. I pressed my ear to the bathroom tile, and that's when I heard something that made my blood freeze. It wasn't just scratching, it was movement. Something large, shifting around in the space beneath my floor, and occasionally, almost like breathing. Deep, slow inhalations and exhalations that didn't sound quite right. I backed away, hands shaking, and that's when I saw them. Fresh scales, not 1 or 2 but dozens, scattered across the shower floor like someone had dumped a handful of confetti. But these were different. Larger, yes, but also darker. The iridescent quality was still there, but underneath it was something that looked almost black. I didn't sleep that night, or the next night. By Monday, I looked like hell. My coworker Jessica cornered me by the coffee machine at our office downtown. "Girl, you look terrible." "What's going on?" I almost told her. Almost. But how do you explain scales appearing in your shower drain without sounding completely insane? "Just having trouble sleeping in the new place," I said instead. Jessica nodded sympathetically. "I had the same problem when I moved to Capitol Hill. Old buildings are noisy, you'll get used to it." But this wasn't about noise. This was about something living beneath my bathroom floor. That evening, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I pried up one of the loose floorboards in my bathroom closet. The building was old, like Mrs. Chen had said. The floorboards were original hardwood, and some of them had loosened over the decades. It wasn't hard to work one of them free with a butter knife and some patience. The smell hit me first. Damp earth, mold, and something else, something organic and unpleasant that I couldn't identify. I shined my phone's flashlight into the gap. The space under the floor was larger than I'd expected. Not just the usual gap between floors, but an actual space. Almost like a crawl space that ran the length of the building. And covering every surface, scales, thousands of them. Some small, like the ones I'd been finding. Others as large as dinner plates. They covered the wooden beams. The old pipes even hung in clusters from the ceiling of the space like some kind of strange organic chandelier. And they were moving. Not all of them, but enough. A subtle shifting, like they were breathing, or like something was moving underneath them. I dropped the floorboard back into place and backed out of the closet, heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial my phone. "Mrs. Chen, it's Sarah. I need to know about the previous tenant." What really happened to her? Silence on the other end. "Sarah, it's late. Perhaps we could discuss this tomorrow." "No, now, please, I found something in my bathroom, and I need to know what I'm dealing with." Another long pause. Then quietly, "What did you find?" "Scales, lots of them, and something living under my floor." I heard her sigh deeply. "Come down to my apartment. We need to talk." Mrs. Chen lived on the first floor, in what used to be the building's parlor. Her apartment was the opposite of mine, cluttered, lived in, with the kind of furniture that had stories. She made tea while I sat on her floral couch, trying to process what I'd seen. "The previous tenant was named Amanda," she said finally, settling into the chair across from me. "She lived in your unit for almost 2 years. Sweet girl. Grad student at DU. What happened to her?" Mrs. Chen stared into her teacup. "She started finding scales in her shower drain, just like you." My stomach dropped. "And?" "At first, she thought it was a plumbing issue, called me, just like you did. But the scales kept appearing, getting bigger, more frequent." She looked up at me. Then she started hearing the sounds. The scratching. Among other things, Mrs. Chen's voice was barely above a whisper. She became obsessed, started tearing up floorboards, following pipes, trying to find the source. I tried to talk her out of it, but what? She found it. Whatever lives down there. And 3 days later, she was gone, left everything behind. Her car was still in the parking spot, her purse on the kitchen counter, keys by the door. But Amanda... She shook her head. Amanda was gone. The teacup rattled in my hands. Gone where? Nobody knows. Police investigated, of course. But there was no sign of struggle, no evidence of foul play. She simply disappeared. "Why didn't you tell me this before I moved in?" Mrs. Chen looked genuinely pained. "Because I hoped it was over. The scales stopped appearing after Amanda left. For 6 months, that unit was normal, clean, quiet. I thought maybe whatever it was had moved on. But it hadn't." "No," she said quietly. "It hadn't. I went back to my apartment that night, but I didn't go to sleep. Instead, I packed a bag. Just essentials. Clothes, laptop, important documents. I had a friend from work who'd let me crash on her couch for a few days while I figured out what to do. But first I needed to see it for myself." I pried up 3 more floorboards in the bathroom closet, creating a gap large enough to shine a proper flashlight into. What I saw down there will haunt me for the rest of my life. It wasn't just scales covering the surfaces. It was skin. Patches of it, translucent and iridescent, stretched between the wooden beams like some kind of cocoon, and in the center of it all, suspended in what looked like a hammock made of that same strange skin. A shape. Human-sized, but wrong somehow. The proportions were off. Too long in some places, too narrow in others, and it was moving, breathing. the entire mass of skin and scales pulsing gently with each inhalation. As I watched, frozen in horror, part of the shape shifted. A section of the skin became transparent for just a moment, and I saw what was underneath. A face. Amanda's face. Her eyes were closed, but her mouth was moving slightly, like she was trying to speak. Around her, the scales continued their gentle movement, and I realized what I was seeing. She wasn't dead. She was changing. The thing that had taken Amanda was transforming her into something else. Something with scales. Something that lived in the dark spaces between floors, in the forgotten corners of old buildings. And now it had noticed me. The shape began to turn slowly, deliberately, until Amanda's face was pointed directly at the gap where I was watching. Her eyes opened. They weren't Amanda's eyes anymore. They were black, completely black, like looking into deep water at night, and they were looking right at me. I ran. I'm writing this from a hotel room near DIA, waiting for my flight to Seattle. I called in sick to work, told my landlord I had a family emergency, and bought a one-way ticket out of Colorado. I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but I know what I saw. Amanda is still there, in that space beneath my bathroom floor, becoming something that shouldn't exist. And whatever took her, it's patient. It's been waiting in that building for over a century, taking people slowly, one at a time. The scales I'd been finding weren't fish scales. They were Amanda's scales. Her skin being shed piece by piece as she transformed into something new. Here's the thing that keeps me awake at night, even now, 800 miles away from that apartment. Before I left Denver, I did some research on the building's history, property records, newspaper archives, anything I could find. That building has had 47 tenants disappear over the past 120 years. 47 people who simply vanished, leaving their belongings behind. And in every case, the disappearance happened from the same unit. My unit. I've been gone 3 months now. I found a new job, a new apartment, a new life in Seattle. But sometimes, late at night, I find myself checking my shower drain. Not because I expect to find anything, but because yesterday morning, I found something that made my blood run cold. A single scale. Translucent, iridescent, the size of a dime. Sitting right at the edge of my new shower drain. My new apartment is everything the Denver place wasn't. Modern, sterile, built in 2018 with all the latest fixtures and smart home technology. I specifically chose a high-rise in Belltown, 20th floor, as far from old Victorian buildings as I could get. But apparently, distance doesn't matter. The first night I found the scale in Seattle, I convinced myself it was coincidence. Maybe it had been stuck to my shoe, or my luggage, or somehow transferred from my old life to my new one. I flushed it and tried to forget. But the next morning there were 2 more. This time, I didn't dispose of them right away. I sat on my bathroom floor in my silk pajamas, staring at those scales, trying to make sense of what was happening. My apartment was on the 20th floor of a concrete and steel building. There was no crawl space beneath me, no century-old secrets hiding in the walls. Just Mrs. Patterson from 19B and her 3 cats below me. I called in sick to my new job at the marketing firm downtown, spent the entire day researching the building's history, the construction company, anything that might explain how something from Denver could follow me here. Nothing. The building was clean. No mysterious disappearances, no strange incidents reported, just a normal Seattle high-rise filled with tech workers and young professionals trying to make it in the city. But that night, at exactly 2:47 a.m., the same time the scratching had started in Denver, I heard it again. Not scratching this time, something different. Tapping, like fingernails against glass. It was coming from my bathroom window. Now, let me paint you a picture here. I'm on the 20th floor. 20 floors up with nothing but air and a very long drop between my window and the street below. The tapping sound was impossible, but there it was. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap. The same rhythm as the scratching in Denver. I grabbed a baseball bat I'd bought for protection, not that I really knew how to use it, and crept toward the bathroom. The tapping continued, patient and deliberate. When I reached the window, I pressed my face against the glass and looked down. Nothing. 20 floors of empty air, Seattle's city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. I looked up. There, pressed against the outside of my bathroom window, was a face. Amanda's face. But not the Amanda I'd seen suspended in that cocoon of skin and scales. This Amanda was different. Her skin had that same iridescent quality as the scales, shifting colors in the city lights. Her fingers, pressed against the glass, were longer than they should be, more delicate, almost translucent. And her eyes, those completely black eyes, were staring directly at me. She smiled, not a human smile, too wide, too knowing, and when she opened her mouth I could see that her teeth had changed too, sharper, more numerous, like a shark's, but arranged in neat human rows. Then she spoke. I shouldn't have been able to hear her through the glass 20 floors up with the wind and the city noise, but her voice came through clear as if she were standing right next to me. "Sarah," she said, and her voice had that same quality as her skin, layered, shimmering, like multiple voices speaking in harmony. "You can't run from what you've seen. You can't hide from what you know." I stumbled backward, the baseball bat clattering to the bathroom floor. "It's not about the building, Sarah. It was never about the building." Amanda's face pressed closer to the glass, her breath fogging the window from the outside, which should have been impossible. "It's about the water, of course. Every shower drain connects to something bigger, Sarah. A system, a network, and once you've been marked..." She pressed her palm against the glass, and I could see the webbing between her fingers, delicate as silk. "Distance doesn't matter." The tapping stopped. Amanda's face began to fade, becoming translucent, until all I could see was her smile hanging in the air like the Cheshire Cat. "Check your drain tomorrow morning, Sarah. I left you something new." Then she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat in my living room with every light on, the baseball bat across my knees, waiting for dawn. When the sun finally came up over Elliott Bay, painting my apartment in soft gold light, I felt brave enough to check the bathroom. The scales were there, just like she'd promised. But these were different again. They were larger than any I'd found before, some as big as my palm. And they weren't just iridescent anymore. They were moving, actually moving, rippling like water, shifting through colors I didn't have names for. And there were so many of them. They covered not just the drain, but the entire shower floor, spilling out onto the bathroom tile, creeping up the walls. As I watched, frozen in the doorway, more scales began appearing. Not falling from somewhere above, but simply manifesting, like they were growing directly out of the surfaces of my bathroom. Within minutes, my entire bathroom floor was covered, and they were all moving toward the drain. I packed everything I could fit in 2 suitcases and left Seattle that same day. Portland was supposed to be different. I rented a studio apartment in the Pearl District, chose the top floor of another modern building. This time, I paid extra for a place with no bathtub, no shower. Just a small powder room with a toilet and sink. If the problem was connected to shower drains, I reasoned, then no shower meant no problem. I got a gym membership at 24-Hour Fitness for showering. For 2 weeks, it worked. Then I started finding scales in the sink drain. Smaller ones at first, like the original scales from Denver. But every day, there were more. And every night at 2:47 a.m., I heard Amanda's voice. Sometimes she was at the window. Sometimes she seemed to be speaking from inside the walls. Once, I swear I heard her voice coming from the sink drain itself, echoing up through the pipes like she was calling from somewhere far below. "You can't run forever, Sarah. Eventually, you'll have to come home." Home. What did that even mean anymore? I tried San Francisco next, then Phoenix, then Austin. Each time, I thought I'd finally escaped. Each time, the scales found me within a week or two. They were changing, evolving. The scales in Austin were almost crystalline, catching the light like prisms. In Phoenix, they seemed to absorb light instead, creating dark spots that hurt to look at directly. And Amanda was changing too. In San Francisco, when she appeared at my 15th floor window, her transformation was more advanced. Her neck was longer, more serpentine. Her fingers had developed an extra joint. Her hair moved like it was underwater, even though there was no breeze. "Do you understand yet?" she asked through the glass. "This isn't a curse, Sarah. It's evolution." In Phoenix, she didn't appear at the window at all. Instead, I found her waiting in my bathroom mirror at 2:47 a.m., her reflection somehow present, even though she wasn't in the room. "The old ways are ending," she said, her voice rippling through the mirror like sound through water. "The surface world is dying, but down here, in the deep places, in the spaces between, there's something new being born." By the time I reached Austin, I was exhausted. Financially drained from constantly moving, emotionally shattered from months of fear and sleepless nights. I'd lost weight, lost my job prospects, lost any sense of normalcy. That's when Amanda made her final offer. "Stop running," she said. Not from outside a window or through a mirror this time, but sitting on my couch like an old friend who'd come for a visit. Her transformation was nearly complete now. Her skin had become something between scales and liquid mercury, constantly shifting and flowing. Her limbs were elongated, graceful, ending in hands that were more like fins. She was beautiful in a way that human eyes weren't designed to process. "This doesn't have to be terrifying," she continued, her voice now like ocean sounds, deep and rhythmic. "I've seen what's coming, Sarah. The floods, the rising seas, the failure of the old systems. But we've adapted. We've become something that can survive what's next." I wanted to run again, pack my bags, find another city, another apartment, another temporary escape, but I was so tired. And some part of me, some small, desperate part, was curious about what she was offering. "How many of us are there?" I asked. Amanda smiled with those too many teeth. "More every year. The buildings choose us, Sarah. The old buildings with deep roots, deep connections to the water systems. They identify people who are ready for change." Ready how? Lonely, isolated, looking for something different even if they don't know it yet. She leaned forward, and I could smell the ocean on her, salt and seaweed and deeper things. "You were ready the moment you started documenting those first scales instead of just throwing them away." She was right. On some level, I had been fascinated from the beginning, drawn to the mystery, to the impossible beauty of those iridescent scales. Even now, terrified as I was, I couldn't stop staring at her transformed features. "What happens if I say yes?" "You come home," Amanda said simply. "Back to Denver, back to the building, and you let yourself become what you were always meant to be. And if I keep running?" Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes, something patient but implacable. "You can't run from water, Sarah. It always finds a way. If you're lying in bed listening to this right now, do me a favor. Tomorrow morning, check your shower drain. Really look at it. And if you find anything unusual, anything at all, get out. Don't investigate. Don't try to understand it. Just pack your things and leave. Because some things are older than our cities, older than our buildings. They've learned to adapt, to hide in the spaces we've created, and they're always looking for someone new. What would you do if you found scales in your shower drain? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, you're going to want to know what happened next. There's more to Amanda's story than I've told you tonight. Sweet dreams. Story number 4. The coffee mug was still warm when I found it, sitting exactly where Jake always left it, right on the edge of the kitchen counter. But Jake hadn't been in the kitchen that morning. I was sure of it, because I'd been watching his bedroom door for the past 3 hours. If you're listening to this right now, lying in bed, maybe with your roommate in the next room, I need you to do something for me. Check if they're still there. Really check. Because what happened to me last October in our little apartment just off campus in Burlington, Vermont, it started with small things. Things you'd never notice until it was too late. Before I tell you what happened, subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell, because you're going to want to hear the other stories, the ones about the people who didn't notice in time. And leave a comment. Tell me if you've ever noticed your roommate acting different. Trust me. After you hear this, you'll understand why I'm asking. All right, the story starts now. It was a Tuesday when I first noticed something was wrong with Jake. We'd been roommates for about 6 months, found each other through one of those college housing groups on Facebook. He was studying computer science at UVM. I was finishing up my psychology degree. The apartment was nothing special. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, radiator that clanged all night. But the rent was cheap and Jake was the perfect roommate. Clean, quiet, always paid his half on time. We weren't best friends or anything, but we got along, watched football on Sundays, shared pizza when we were both too lazy to cook, normal roommate stuff. That Tuesday morning, I woke up around 7, made my usual trek to the kitchen for coffee, and there was Jake standing by the window, just staring out at the parking lot. Nothing unusual about that, except when I said morning, man, he didn't respond. Not even a grunt. I figured he was just tired, maybe stressed about midterms. So I made my coffee, black with 2 sugars, and went about my morning. But when I came back 20 minutes later to refill my mug, Jake was still there. Same exact position, like he hadn't moved a muscle. Jake? I walked closer. You good? He turned then, slowly, and looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, like he was trying to remember who I was. Yeah. His voice sounded thin, like it was coming from far away, just thinking. The rest of that day was normal. Jake went to his classes. I went to mine. We passed each other in the hallway that evening, exchanged our usual nod. But something felt different. Like when you know a storm's coming even though the sky's still clear. Wednesday was when things got strange. I need to tell you about the photos first, because looking back, that's when I should have known. Tuesday night, before all the weird stuff really started, I was scrolling through my phone, and I found this picture Dylan had sent from a party the previous weekend. Jake and I were both there, standing by the beer pong table. But in the photo, Jake looked different. Not faded yet, but like the camera had trouble focusing on him, while everyone else was crystal clear. I didn't think much of it then. Just figured Dylan's phone camera was acting up. But now I wonder if that was the beginning. I had an early class, research methods, 8 a.m. Brutal. When I stumbled out of my room at 7:30, groggy and desperate for caffeine, Jake's door was open. I could see him sitting on the edge of his bed, fully dressed, backpack at his feet, just sitting. "Early class?" I asked. He looked up at me, and I swear, for just a second, I could see through him. Not like transparent exactly, but like when you look at a reflection in a window and can see what's behind it too. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and he was solid again. "Yeah?" That thin voice again. Early. But here's the thing, I saw Jake 3 more times that day. In 3 different places on campus, at the exact same time. I was leaving the library around 2. Saw him walking into the science building. Normal. except I'd just gotten a text from our mutual friend Dylan with a photo of Jake in the student union. Timestamp matched exactly, and my phone buzzed again. Another friend, Sarah from Jake's coding class, asking if he was sick because he was acting weird in class, sitting there but not really there. That night, I ordered Chinese food, got extra orange chicken because Jake always stole some of mine. When the delivery guy knocked, I called out, "Jake, food's here." No response. His door was closed, light off. I figured he was sleeping. I ate alone, watching some mindless Netflix show, trying to shake this feeling that something was shifting in our apartment. Like the air pressure was changing. You know that feeling when your ears need to pop but won't? That, around midnight, I woke up to use the bathroom, and I heard Jake's voice coming from his room. At first I thought he was on the phone, but as I listened, he was just repeating the same phrase, over and over. "Still here, still here, still here." I stood outside his door, hand raised to knock, but something stopped me. Some instinct, primitive, the kind that kept our ancestors alive, telling me not to open that door. I went back to bed, but didn't sleep, just lay there listening. The voice continued for another hour, then stopped abruptly, like someone had pulled a plug. Thursday, I barely saw Jake at all. His door was closed when I left for class, closed when I came back. The only sign he was still there was the sound of his keyboard, that familiar clicking he made when he was coding. But it sounded wrong. Too regular, like a metronome. Click, click, click. Exact same interval between each keystroke. I tried texting him. "Hey, man, you want to grab lunch?" The message showed as read, but no response. An hour later. "You okay? Haven't seen you much." Read, nothing. That evening, I was in the living room, working on a paper about cognitive dissonance. Ironically, when I heard Jake's door open. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heading to the kitchen. I didn't look up, just called out, "There's leftover Chinese in the fridge if you want it." The footsteps stopped. I waited, then heard them return to his room. The door closed. But here's what made my skin crawl. I could still hear footsteps in the kitchen. I got up, walked to the kitchen doorway. Empty, but the refrigerator was open. Just slightly, the light casting weird shadows on the wall, and the leftover container was on the counter, lid off, food untouched. I put it back, closed the fridge, and that's when I saw it. Jake's reflection in the microwave door, standing right behind me. I spun around, nothing, just empty air, but I could smell him. That specific combination of his cologne and laundry detergent, hanging in the space where he should have been. Friday morning. I decided to confront whatever was happening. Knocked on Jake's door. Firm, insistent. "Jake, we need to talk." The door opened, and Jake stood there. But, God, how do I describe this? He looked like a photocopy of himself. All the details were there. Brown hair, blue eyes, that small scar on his chin from a skateboarding accident, but faded, like someone had turned down his opacity in Photoshop. "Hey." His voice was barely a whisper now. "Sorry, I've been dealing with something." "What's going on, man? You're scaring me." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm still here. That's what matters. Right?" Before I could respond, he closed the door. Gently, but with a finality that made me step back. I spent the rest of Friday at the library. Couldn't focus on studying. Kept thinking about Jake. When I finally came home around 10 p.m., the apartment was dark, quiet. Jake's door was open. Room empty. Bed made, but his stuff was still there. Laptop on the desk, clothes in the closet, I checked the bathroom, living room, kitchen, no Jake. But on the kitchen counter, a note, his handwriting, shaky, desperate. Still here. Look closer. I must have read that note 50 times, turned it over, held it up to the light, looking for some hidden meaning. And that's when I noticed it. The paper. It was fading too, not the ink, the actual paper, becoming translucent. I could see my hand through it. I set it down, backed away, and when I looked again, it was solid, normal, but I knew what I'd seen. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. The radiator clanging, a door closing somewhere in the building. Footsteps from the apartment above. Around 3 a.m., I heard Jake's shower running. The sound was unmistakable. That specific squeak his bathroom door made. The particular rhythm of water through our old pipes. I got up, crept to the hallway. Jake's room was still empty, but I could see light under his bathroom door, steam seeping out. The shower ran for exactly 17 minutes. I know because I timed it. Then it stopped. The door opened. Nothing came out, but wet footprints appeared on the hallway carpet, leading from the bathroom to Jake's room. They stopped right at his doorway, then faded, like they were being absorbed into the floor. I stood there, frozen, watching the last drops of water disappear. Then I heard it, from inside Jake's empty room, the sound of someone getting into bed, springs creaking, covers rustling. A sigh. Definitely Jake's sigh. That exhausted sound he made after a long day. Jake, I whispered into the darkness. Go to sleep, Tom. His voice from nowhere, everywhere. I'm trying to hold on, but it's hard, it's so hard. I went back to my room, locked the door, which I'd never done before, and sat on my bed until sunrise. When morning came, I found Jake's pillow on his bed, indented, like someone had slept there. It was still warm. Saturday. I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window, birds chirping, normal morning sounds. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd dreamed the whole week. Then I heard it, the coffee maker, brewing. I found Jake in the kitchen, solid, real, pouring himself a cup. He looked up when I entered, smiled. That familiar Jake smile. Want some? Just made a fresh pot. Relief flooded through me. Jesus, Jake, where were you last night? I was worried. He tilted his head, confused. What do you mean? I was here. I'm always here. Your room was empty. I looked everywhere. You must have missed me. He took a sip of coffee. I was probably in the bathroom or something. I wanted to argue, but he seemed so normal. We spent the morning watching TV, talking about normal things, the Patriots game, upcoming exams. It was like the past week hadn't happened, but I noticed things, little things. When Jake reached for the remote, his hand passed through it first, then solidified. Grabbed it on the second try. When he laughed at something on TV, the sound came a split second after his mouth moved, like a badly dubbed movie. And his shadow, God, his shadow was all wrong. Sometimes it was there. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it moved independently, reaching for things Jake wasn't reaching for. Once, I swear I saw it stand up while Jake was still sitting. Around noon, while Jake was in the shower, I went into his room. I don't know why, just needed to prove to myself that everything was fine. His laptop was open, screen dark. I nudged the mouse. The screen lit up, dozens of windows open, all showing the same thing. Photos, hundreds of them, all of Jake, but taken from weird angles. From outside looking in from corners of rooms. Some were from our apartment. Places I recognize, but others, I didn't know where they were taken. And in each one, Jake looked a little more faded. a little less there. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the timestamps. Some of these photos were dated weeks from now. November, December, pictures of Jake that hadn't been taken yet. And in the December ones, he was barely visible, just an outline, a suggestion of a person. There was a document open too. Jake's diary. I know I shouldn't have read it, but I had to understand. The entries started normally enough. Complaints about homework. Thoughts about a girl in his physics class. Then, Tuesday's entry. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Like I'm coming apart at the seams. Tom looked right through me this morning. Not metaphorically, literally. His eyes didn't track when I moved. Wednesday. It's getting worse. I was in 3 places at once today. I remember all of them. The lecture hall, the union, the library, all at the same time. How is that possible? Thursday. I can see through my hands now. Spent an hour in the bathroom watching them fade and solidify. I'm scared to sleep. What if I don't come back? Friday. Tom can see it now. Thank God. I thought I was going insane. But if he can see it too, it's real. I'm really disappearing. I tried calling my mom. She didn't recognize my voice. Said she didn't have a son. The last entry was from this morning. I think I understand now. I'm not disappearing. I'm dispersing. Spreading out across space and time. Sometimes I'm here. Sometimes I'm in places I've never been. Sometimes I'm in the future. Sometimes the past. I saw myself as a kid yesterday. He looked right at me. He knew. The shower stopped. I quickly closed the laptop, left his room, went to mine, closed the door, tried to process what I'd seen. Then I heard Jake's voice, right outside my door. Tom, why were you in my room? I didn't answer, couldn't. Tom, I know you saw them. The photos, I've been trying to document it. Document what? My voice cracked. The fading. It started last week, Tuesday. I noticed it in the mirror first. Thought I was just tired. But it's getting worse. Sometimes. I'm not sure if I'm here or somewhere else. Sometimes I'm in 2 places at once. Sometimes I'm nowhere at all. I opened my door. Jake stood there, translucent now. I could see the hallway wall through his chest. What's happening to you? I don't know. He looked down at his fading hands, but I can feel it, pulling me, like I'm being erased, 1 piece at a time, and the worst part? No one else notices. My professors, my friends, they all act like I'm there, solid, real. Only you seem to see it. We need to get you help, a hospital. He laughed, hollow, empty. And tell them what? That I'm disappearing? They'd think we're both crazy. There has to be something we can do. Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was so faint I had to strain to hear it. I've been thinking, maybe this is how it happens. How people just vanish. You know those missing persons cases? The ones where someone just disappears without a trace? No signs of struggle, no note, just gone. Maybe they didn't run away. Maybe they faded. Like me. That's insane. Is it? Think about it. How many people do you pass every day that you don't really see? How many faces blend into the background? Maybe some of them are like me, half here, half not. And we just don't notice because we're not really looking. He reached out, tried to touch my shoulder. His hand passed through. I can feel myself slipping. Tom, it's like I'm a radio signal. And someone keeps turning the dial. Sometimes I'm clear. Sometimes I'm static. And the static is winning. That night, Saturday night, we tried everything. I took photos of Jake every hour, documenting his fading. We wrote notes, recorded videos, anything to prove he existed. But even as we created the evidence, it disappeared. Photos deleted themselves. Videos corrupted. Notes faded away. Jake tried to call his parents again. His mom answered. But when he spoke, she just said, "Hello? Hello? Is anyone there?" Like his voice wasn't reaching her. He hung up, defeated. "I'm being edited out," he said, like someone's going through reality with an eraser and removing all traces of me. We stayed up all night, talking, remembering. I told him about the time he'd helped me move in, how he'd carried my mini fridge up 3 flights of stairs without complaining. He told me about his first coding project, how proud he'd been when it finally worked. Normal memories, but they felt precious now, like artifacts from a world that was quickly disappearing. As the sun rose, Jake was barely visible, just a shimmer in the air, a distortion, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. "Tom!" His voice was just a whisper. "Promise me something. Anything. Remember me. Even when everyone else forgets. Even when there's no proof I existed, remember me. I promise." He smiled, or I think he did. It was hard to tell. "Check the coffee maker tomorrow morning. If there's a fresh pot, you'll know I'm still here, somewhere." And then, he was gone. Not dramatically, not with a flash or a sound, just gone. Like he'd never been there at all. Sunday, the last day, I woke up and knew, before I even left my room, that Jake was gone. Not moved out, not missing, but gone. The apartment felt different, emptier, like it had been hollowed out. His room was exactly as it had been. Clothes still in the closet, laptop still on the desk, but no Jake. I searched everywhere. Called his phone, straight to voicemail. Called Dylan, Sarah, everyone who knew him. "Jake? Jake who?" Dylan sounded confused. "Dude, you've lived alone all semester." Sarah's response was the same. "I don't know any Jake in my coding class." I hung up, hands shaking, went back to Jake's room, or what had been Jake's room. But when I opened the door, it was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no clothes, nothing. Just bare walls and carpet, like no one had ever lived there at all. I ran to the kitchen. The note was gone. The leftover Chinese food I'd ordered extra of, gone. Even the coffee mug he'd used that morning, vanished. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my texts. Our entire conversation history deleted. Photos we'd taken together. I was alone in all of them, standing next to empty space, smiling at nothing. The lease agreement I'd signed, just my name now. The rent, which had been split between us, showed I'd been paying the full amount all along. Every trace of Jake had been erased from the official record. But I remember Jake, even if no one else does. Even if there's no proof he ever existed. I remember. I started writing everything down, every detail I could recall. His middle name was Thomas. He was from Portland, Maine. He had a scar on his chin from trying to do a kickflip when he was 12. He loved cold brew coffee but hated espresso. He played guitar but only when he thought no one was listening. He was afraid of spiders but would never admit it. He wanted to develop apps that helped people with disabilities. He was real. He was my friend. He was here. The apartment feels different now. Smaller, quieter, sometimes. Late at night, I hear typing from the empty room. That same metronomic clicking. And sometimes, just sometimes, I find a coffee mug on the counter, still warm, right where Jake always left it. But there's more. Things I haven't told anyone. Because who would believe me? Sometimes I see other people fading too. Just glimpses. A woman at the grocery store whose edges seem blurred. A man at the bus stop who's there one second and gone the next. A kid in my psych class who everyone seems to forget exists between lectures. And I've started taking photos, obsessively, of everyone I meet, everyone I care about, because I'm terrified that one day I'll wake up and they'll all be gone, edited out, erased, and I'll be the only one who remembers. Last week, I met someone who understood, an older woman at a coffee shop. She saw me taking pictures of my friend Michelle, saw the fear in my eyes, and she knew. She sat down across from me, uninvited, and said the words that made my blood run cold. "You've lost someone to the fade, haven't you?" I just nodded, couldn't speak. "My husband," she said, 30 years ago, started just like you described, fading, being in multiple places, then one day, gone. Everyone forgot, even our children. They don't remember their father. I'm the only one. How do you live with it?" I asked. She smiled, sad, knowing. "You hold on to the memories. You write them down. You take pictures. And you watch, because once you've seen it happen, you can't unsee it. You'll notice the faders everywhere. The people who are slipping through the cracks. Is there a way to stop it? To bring them back?" She shook her head. "I've spent 30 years looking for answers, talking to others like us, the ones who remember. We have theories, but no solutions. Some think it's always been happening. That reality just loses people sometimes. Like a computer glitch, others think it's getting worse. That more people are fading now than ever before. Why us? Why can we see it when others can't? Maybe because we're paying attention. Maybe because we loved them enough to notice. Or maybe..." She paused, looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. "Maybe we're next." That was 2 weeks ago. And she was right, this morning. I looked in the mirror, and I swear, just for a second, I looked a little faded too. I've started seeing myself in places I haven't been, catching glimpses in store windows of me walking by when I'm home in bed, finding notes in my handwriting that I don't remember writing. My mom called yesterday, asked if I was feeling okay, said my voice sounded distant. I'm scared. I'm so scared. But I can't tell anyone. Who would believe me? They'd think I'm having a breakdown. Maybe I am. Maybe this is all in my head. Maybe Jake never existed and I'm just losing my mind. But then I find the coffee mug, still warm, right where he always left it. And I know he was real. I know this is happening. And I know I don't have much time. If you're still listening, check on your roommate right now. Make sure they're solid, real. Make sure other people remember them too. Because once the fading starts, once you begin to slip between the cracks of reality, I don't think you can come back. Take a photo of them. Right now, while you're thinking about it. Save it somewhere safe. Print it out if you can. Because digital files seem to disappear first. Write down their full name, their birthday, where they're from, their favorite food, anything that proves they were here. And if your roommate isn't there, if their room is empty but their stuff remains. If you find notes in handwriting you don't recognize saying "still here," if you see wet footprints that lead nowhere, if you hear voices from empty rooms, if you find warm coffee mugs appearing on counters, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Because I need to know I'm not alone in remembering. I need to know that Jake was real, that this happened. And tell me, have you noticed anyone else fading? Have you seen the blurred edges, the double exposures, the people who are there but not there? Because I think it's spreading. I think more people are noticing. And I think that's why you're listening to this story at 2 a.m., unable to sleep. Because deep down, you've seen it too, haven't you? Maybe you've noticed a coworker who everyone forgets exists between meetings. Maybe you have photos on your phone of people you don't remember taking pictures with. Maybe you found belongings in your home that don't belong to anyone you know. Maybe you've heard voices calling your name from empty rooms. We need to find each other, those of us who can see it, who remember. Because if we don't, if we let ourselves forget, then they're truly gone. And we might be next. I've started a notebook, writing down every person I meet, every interaction, every detail, because I don't know who might fade next. It could be my professor, my barista, my mom, or me, and the coffee mug. It appeared again this morning, but this time there were two, side by side, both warm, both exactly where Jake would leave his, and where I leave mine. I think I understand now. I think Jake was trying to tell me something. Still here, not just about him, but about all of us. We're all still here. Until we're not, until we fade, until we're forgotten. But as long as one person remembers, as long as one person tells a story, maybe we can hold on. Maybe that's why I'm telling you this. Why I need you to listen, to remember, to share. Because every view, every comment, every share is proof that we existed, that we were here, that we mattered. Before I fade too, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, share this story with someone. Anyone? Because maybe, if enough people remember, if enough people know the truth, maybe we can stop whatever's happening. Maybe we can bring them back. Maybe we can save ourselves. Or maybe we'll all fade away, one by one, until there's no one left to remember anyone. But until then, I'll keep telling the stories. I'll keep the memories alive. I'll keep watching for the faders. And I'll keep checking for that warm coffee mug every morning, hoping, praying, that somewhere, somehow, Jake is still here. And if you wake up tomorrow and you can't remember what the story was about, if you find this video in your history but can't recall watching it, if you see my channel but don't recognize my voice, then you'll know. The fade has found me too. Sweet dreams. And don't forget to check on your roommate. One last thing, if you're experiencing this, if you're seeing people fade, there's something else I need to tell you. Something the woman in the coffee shop whispered to me before she left. She said the fading isn't random. She said there's a pattern. People who fade, they all have something in common. They all... Wait, do you hear that? That typing? It's coming from Jake's room, but louder now. I need to go check. If I don't come back, if this video is all that's left, remember what I told you. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And whatever you do, don't ignore the signs. Because once you start fading, there's no coming back.